war wasn't just hell. It was a business. And where there was profit, there were scavengers. Beneath a sky that bled crimson, the battlefield stretched endlessly, littered with the ghosts of machines and men alike. Smoke twisted into the air, the dying breath of shattered warships. The ground blackened, scorched was hungry. It swallowed the fallen without remorse. And in the midst of it all, Nathan Cole moved like a shadow. He wasn't a hero. Not a soldier. Just a man with an eye for valuable scrap and the instincts to survive. War ended for some. For men like Nathan, it was just another workday. But that was before he found her. At first, he almost missed her, just another broken body in the wreckage of a downed starfighter. But something caught his eye. A faint glow. Nathan took a step closer. Then another. His gut twisted. Her skin shimmered, pulsing dimly beneath the grime and blood, like a dying ember fighting against the dark. A starborn. And she was still alive. His first instinct? Walk away. This wasn't his fight. The best thing he could do was leave before someone or something came back to finish the job. Then, she moved. Barely. A ragged breath. A flicker of silver eyes. And in them fear. Nathan cursed. Loudly. Why is it never the easy jobs, he muttered. The smart move was to let her go. Instead, he knelt beside her, his fingers pressing lightly against her pulse. Weak, but there. Her lips moved. Words soft, broken, incomprehensible. She didn't understand him. He didn't understand her. But when he lifted her into his arms, she didn't resist. And just like that, Nathan Cole went from scavenger to fugitive. What would you do in Nathan's place? Leave her or save her? Let me know in the comments. Nathan's bunker wasn't much, just a reinforced cave built deep into the cliffs, half hidden by jagged rock formations and the creeping vines of a long-abandoned world. It had been his hideout for years, a place where he could disappear when things got too hot. Now, it had just become a sanctuary for two. The alien girl lay sprawled on the only cot, her breathing shallow, her skin still faintly glowing beneath the grime and blood. Up close, the glow wasn't just a trick of the light. It was alive, pulsing in intricate, shifting patterns like the constellations themselves had been etched into her flesh. A starborn. Nathan wasn't a doctor, but he had patched himself up enough times to know what to do. He worked in silence, stitching wounds, bandaging burns, hydrating her through a salvaged med pump. Outside, the wind howled through the canyon, a reminder that the world was still dangerous, still hunting for them. Hours passed. Then a soft gasp. Nathan barely had time to react before her eyes snapped open. Silver. Sharp. Filled with a mix of confusion, pain, and sheer, raw terror. She tried to move, but her body refused. Weak. Disoriented. Trapped. Nathan raised his hands, keeping his voice calm. Whoa, whoa. Easy. I'm not gonna hurt you. She didn't understand. Of course, she didn't. Instead, she spoke words tumbling from her lips in a language he had never heard before. Strange, melodic, but hurried. Desperate. Nathan sighed. Yeah, this is gonna be fun. He tapped his chest. Nathan. She hesitated. Her breathing was still shaky, her body trembling with exhaustion. But slowly, she raised a trembling hand to her own heart. Ilira, she whispered. Progress. Nathan grabbed a flask of water and held it out. She eyed it warily. Look, you're not in a position to be picky, he muttered, setting it beside her. Drink when you can. The tension eased just a little. Over the next few hours, they worked in fragments, gestures, expressions, simple words that barely scratched the surface of understanding. It wasn't easy. But eventually, Nathan pieced together the truth. She wasn't just some lost refugee. She was hunted. And whatever she knew, whatever secret had almost gotten her killed, was bigger than either of them. Night had settled over the ruins like a shroud of smoke and silence. The battlefield, once a graveyard of war, had grown eerily still. But Nathan had survived too many close calls to trust silence. It was the kind that came before a storm. Elora lay on the cot, still too weak to move, her glow dim but steady. She had drifted into uneasy sleep, the faint rise and fall of her breath the only sign she was still holding on. Nathan sat near the entrance, rifle across his lap, his ears tuned to the darkness. His gut had been gnawing at him all night, an instinct honed through years of surviving in places where men disappeared without a sound. Then he saw them. Lights. 3 dark shapes moving through the wreckage, their silhouettes cutting through the haze of dust and lingering smoke. Zurich hunters. Nathan's pulse quickened. They moved with discipline, rifles held low but ready, their armor gleaming in the faint glow of their plasma cells. These weren't ordinary grunts. These were trackers, trained killers who didn't just look for targets, they hunted them. And they were looking for her. Nathan's mind raced. A direct fight was suicide. His bunker was secure, but it wouldn't last against a concentrated assault. He needed another way. He needed to be smarter. He scrambled toward his old comm console, fingers flying over the worn-out controls. The system was ancient, barely held together by years of makeshift repairs. But it still had one trick left. An old military encryption key. Nathan had found it years ago while salvaging a wrecked Dominion command station. Useless for most things. Except for this. He pulsed a signal, quick, precise, designed to mimic a high-ranking distress call. Outside, the Zurich hunters' comms crackled to life. Nathan held his breath. Then panic. One of the hunters stiffened. What the hell? Command's watching us. Impossible, another growled. We're running silent dash. Then explain why we just got pinged by a high command signal. Silence. Then movement hurried, uncertain. One of them cursed. We can't risk it. If command's monitoring this op, we're already compromised. Fall back, the leader snapped. Now. Nathan watched as they melted into the ruins, vanishing into the night like shadows swallowed by shadows. He let out a slow breath. Too close. But he knew this was only a temporary reprieve. The Zurich were relentless. They didn't just give up. They'd be back. And next time, they wouldn't fall for the same trick. Elora's people had abandoned her. The Zurich were hunting her. And now, they were both running for their lives. Nathan had expected Elora to take days to recover. Maybe weeks. But Starborn were tougher than they looked. By the second day, she was sitting up. By the third, she was standing, her strength returning at a rate that shouldn't have been possible. Whatever biological miracle her species possessed, it was kicking in. But her expression? That was something no healing could fix. She carried a weight far heavier than her injuries. And that weight was about to crush both of them. Nathan sat across from her at the bunker's small, flickering console. You wanna tell me why half the damn sector wants you dead? Elora hesitated. Her hands, still weak but steady, reached into the torn fabric of her suit. For a second, Nathan thought she was going for a weapon. Instead, she pulled out a small, silver data shard. Nathan's eyes narrowed. He had seen plenty of those before. Encryption keys. Data logs. Secrets. And secrets? Secrets got people killed. He leaned forward. What's on it? Elora didn't answer right away. She looked afraid. Not just of the enemy hunting her but of the very thing she was holding. Her fingers tightened around the shard. When she spoke, her voice was almost too quiet to hear. Proof, she whispered. Of treason. Of war crimes. My leaders, they trade our people, for power. Nathan felt the air shift between them. A loaded silence. The kind that came before everything went to hell. Nathan let out a low whistle, leaning back. Great. So now we're not just running from mercenaries. He gave a dry chuckle, but there was no humor in it. We're running from an empire. Illyra met his gaze, and for the first time, he saw it clearly. The guilt. She hadn't just stumbled into this. She had been part of it. Maybe not willingly, but enough to know the cost of betrayal. Nathan exhaled sharply. All right. Fine. Say I believe you. Say this shard really has something big on it. What's the plan? Illyra swallowed hard. We need to dash. Beep. 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 The bunker's proximity sensors screamed. Nathan's blood ran cold. He spun toward the console, eyes scanning the readout. Multiple heat signatures. Moving fast. Armed. They had been found. Illyra's glow pulsed fear. Nathan grabbed his rifle, shoving the data shard into his belt. No more time for plans. He turned to Illyra. Time to run. The tunnels beneath the cliffs had always been Nathan's contingency plan, a hidden escape route in case things went south. Tonight, it had become a battlefield. The first sign of trouble was the distant hum of boots, a rhythmic, pounding march that sent vibrations through the rock walls. Then came the glow. Plasma rifles, their muzzles burning like miniature suns in the dark. Then all hell broke loose. A deafening crack split the air as the first plasma shot slammed into the tunnel wall, sending a spray of molten rock across Nathan's cheek. Zurich troops had breached the tunnel. Nathan didn't hesitate. He spun, his rifle snapping up, and squeezed the trigger. The first enemy went down in a burst of blue sparks, his armor sizzling as he hit the ground. Illyra was already running. Nathan fired again, covering her, his shots flashing in the darkness. But the tunnel was too tight, the enemy too many. They had nowhere to go but forward. The exit was close. Then boom. An explosion ripped through the tunnel. The force threw Nathan off his feet, the shockwave smashing him against the rocky floor. His ears rang, the world spinning in a haze of dust and burning ozone. Somewhere ahead, Illyra groaned, half buried under a pile of debris. Nathan coughed, struggling to push himself up. Pain stabbed through his ribs. Probably cracked. Maybe broken. Didn't matter. Because above them, cutting through the night like a vulture ready to feast, came the roar of an approaching Zurich gunship. Too big. Too fast. Too well armed. Nathan's mind screamed move. He grabbed Illyra's hand and yanked her free. Run, he shouted. They burst onto the landing pad, lungs burning, feet barely holding their balance on the unstable ground. And there waiting for them, like a battered angel in the storm, was Nathan's ship. A Fury-class smuggler, old and dented but alive, her engines thrumming with barely contained power. Nathan didn't stop. He sprinted up the loading ramp, shoving Illyra inside just as plasma fire tore into the hull. Engines roared to life. The Zurich weren't far behind. Nathan never pretended his ship was built for war. A Fury-class smuggler wasn't some top-of-the-line fighter, bristling with weapons and shields. It was a ship meant to run, to slip past blockades, to dodge patrols, to make it to the next payday without drawing too much attention. Right now, attention was the last thing they needed. The moment they broke atmosphere, the stars turned into a battlefield. 3 Zurich interceptors were already in pursuit, their sleek, angular forms gliding through space like predatory birds. Plasma fire screamed past the hull, close enough that the cockpit flashed red with warning lights. Nathan gritted his teeth, yanking the controls into a hard dive. The ship shuddered, its shields straining against the incoming barrage. Hold together, "Baby," he muttered. Elora clutched the edge of the co-pilot's seat, her glow flickering wildly. She had never seen space like this before, not like this. Not while being hunted. Then Nathan barked, "Elora, can you shoot?" She hesitated. "I dash. No time. Just hit the damn red switch and start pressing buttons." Elora's hands flew across the weapon's console, her instincts kicking in. The ship's turrets spun into action, targeting the incoming fighters. The first shot missed. The second didn't. A plasma round ripped through an interceptor's wing, sending it spiraling into the void, its hull blooming into fire. Nathan whooped. "That's one." Elora exhaled sharply, her hands steadier now. Another fighter swooped in from above, its cannons charging up for a kill shot. Elora saw it first. She hit the targeting system, locked on, and fired. A direct hit. The interceptor exploded into a burning wreck, debris scattering like shattered glass. 2 down. The third ship was smarter. It pulled back, trying to drive them toward open space where it had the advantage. Nathan had other ideas. Ahead, the black abyss of an asteroid field loomed, a chaotic graveyard of rock and frozen debris, spinning in a silent, deadly dance. Elora's eyes widened. "Are you dash?" Nathan grinned. "Oh yeah." They dove into the field. Rocks the size of mountains tumbled lazily through the void, while smaller fragments zipped past like bullets. Nathan twisted the controls, weaving through the chaos by instinct, not calculation. Behind them, the last Zurich fighter hesitated. That was all they needed. A sudden shift, a spinning chunk of ice slammed into the pursuer, sending it crashing into an asteroid. Gone. Silence. Nathan exhaled. "Hell yeah. That's how you fly." Elora didn't look as relieved. She was staring at the console, her glow fading into a sickly dim pulse. Then she cursed. Nathan frowned. "What?" Her voice was tight with dread. "They tagged us." Nathan's stomach dropped. A tracker beacon. They were still being hunted. The stars ahead weren't empty. They were filled with something colossal, monstrous waiting. A Zurich warship loomed ahead, its massive silhouette blotting out the distant nebulae like the gaping maw of a beast. Gun turrets rotated, locking onto their tiny smuggler ship. Shields flared to life, and a deep mechanical hum reverberated through the void as its main cannons charged up. Nathan's pulse spiked. Surrender. Not happening. He tightened his grip on the controls, his fingers dancing over the thrusters. "Hold on," he muttered. Elora's silver eyes widened. "What are you doing?" Nathan didn't answer. He slammed the throttle forward. The Fury-class smuggler shot ahead straight toward the warship. To the Zurich gunners, it looked like suicide. A desperate, last-ditch attempt to go out in flames. The warship's captain barked an order. "Fire!" Plasma cannons roared to life, sending a blinding barrage of energy screaming toward them. Elora braced for impact. Nathan didn't blink. At the very last second he pulled up. The ship veered sharply, just as the Zurich warship's own cannons fired directly into the asteroid field behind them. A fatal miscalculation. The plasma blasts ripped through the debris, sending a chain reaction of explosions tearing across the field. Massive asteroids fractured, hurtling forward with unstoppable momentum. Nathan's ship darted between the chaos, barely scraping past a burning chunk of wreckage. The Zurich warship? Not so lucky. A mountain-sized asteroid, cracked in two by its own cannons, came crashing down on top of it. The impact was cataclysmic. A fireball erupted into the void as the warship's shields collapsed, its hull crushed under the weight of 1 billion tons of rock. Then, silence. Nathan let out a shaky breath, his hands still gripping the controls. "Remind me to never do that again," he muttered. Elora was staring at him, her bioluminescent markings flickering with something between relief and amusement. She smirked. Liar. Nathan gave her a crooked grin. Yeah. Okay. Maybe. He adjusted their course. Ahead, the distant glow of Black Crescent Station beckoned a place of smugglers, criminals, and revolutionaries. The perfect place to disappear. Or, better yet, the perfect place to start something bigger. Because this wasn't over. It was just the beginning.